What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the GrowingAU Show, where we're going over the stock market's winners and losers to help you find and determine the best place to put your money in the stock market. On today's episode, we're talking about perhaps one of the most driven companies of all time, Uber. We're going to be talking about whether the check engine light is still on for Uber or whether the worst is in the review mirrors for the company. There's a lot to go over today. We're going to keep it as quick and clear as possible, but without further ado, let's roll that intro and jump on into the video. As we always say here, make sure you check the description down below for a full stock guide sheet on Uber where all of our research can be found. Also down there, you're going to find a whole list of ebooks, email list, everything, and a whole bunch of very valuable financial resources for you, including a free share in the stock market courtesy of Robinhood. So definitely check that out down there. So let's jump on into some of the analytical information about Uber. So the current stock price of Uber is currently $36.08 with an annual high of $47.08 and an annual low of $13.71. Their volume is 72.42 million with an average volume of 30.26 million, and they have a market cap of 62.98 billion. For the last couple months for Uber has been kind of interesting. This company has been obviously severely hit by the pandemic, as has Lyft. Both of these ride-hailing services have just really suffered because we're doing all this social distancing and people don't want to be getting into a car that close quarters with a complete stranger, and it's really had an effect on this company. Currently right now they're at $5.24. That's actually a 16.99% increase for the month. The reason that's been happening is because as companies have continued to loosen their restrictions and their regulations as far as social distancing is concerned, the ride service has seen it kind of come back to life. As cities have come back to life, so has the ride hailing service in this company. So we've seen a little bit of growth over the last month. I mean, 16.99% is no small amount for the company. Annually, they're still hurting. They're down $3.99. That's 9.96%. And as far as over the last 5 years, obviously not being on the market for 5 years, so this kind of being their overall, they are down $8.92. That is 19.82% in the negative. Fortunate, I was actually surprised. I didn't do a whole lot of research into Uber before conducting the research for this video, and I was actually really surprised to see how poorly the ride-hailing service has done since their IPO. It really has kind of dropped quite severely. Now, they are starting to get back up to that IPO level. They did IPO at $45, right now sitting at $36.08, but I mean, that's still down almost $10. That's no small amount. So Uber having some problems. This coronavirus outbreak has definitely not helped the company whatsoever. But let's take a look at their earnings per share. June 30th, 2019, they were down $4.72 per share. September 30th, 2019, they were down 68 cents per share. December 31st, 2019, they were at 85 cents per share, so good there. But then March 30th, 2020, they were at a negative $1.70 per share. So those are some of the numbers you need to know about the company. As always, they'll all be linked down below if you want to check them out or go further. I do highly recommend macrotrends.net for a lot of this information. They have a lot of great charts and graphs that's going to show you all the information you need. But let's take a look now at what some of the bulls are saying about Uber. This is coming from Morningstar.com, as always. So the bulls are actually very happy with Uber's current position in the autonomous vehicle market. Self-driving is becoming very popular. It's getting very big as 5G continues to roll out. The more prevalent self-driving cars is going to be because it's going to make it more possible with the connectivity. So they think that with their position in that autonomous vehicle race, it would get them to a great point where they no longer would need to hire drivers because they would have self-driving vehicles, and this would allow the company to continue to turn a higher profit. The other thing they like about Uber is their multi-module offerings when it comes to their services. What that means is there's Uber for the average day civilian like us getting rides. There's Uber for business. They're looking at a future air taxi service. When that's going to happen, I mean, we don't know. Obviously, that's a very long-term future prediction, but they have a lot of options for everybody. Something I actually learned while doing the research for this video I thought was very interesting was Uber and more about their business services. They supply a lot of help when it comes to shipping and managing supply chains for multiple businesses. So there's a lot more that Uber offers than just kind of a bougie taxi service. And really, I think that's kind of helping them sustain and will help them continue to grow in the future as some of the things develop. And that's kind of what the bulls are saying here. Finally, in regards to the bulls, right now there's a pressure to pay a minimum amount per trip to the drivers. And what they're thinking is as that amount will continue to increase and as the demand for that amount continues to increase, it's basically going to make it so that a lot of the new starting companies are going to have a very hard time getting into these emerging, this market space, just because these companies aren't going to be able to afford to pay drivers what they are going to be required to pay or what companies like Lyft and Uber are going to be paying their drivers. But despite what the bulls are saying, we always know that there are bears on the stocks. Let's be taking a look at what they're saying here today. One of the big things that the bears are complaining about is when it comes to data breaches at Uber that has led to some bad culture. It's also they've had some sexual misconduct cases as well as racial discrimination issues. So all the things that I think a lot of people kind of knew about Uber before Uber started. They were aware that some of these things, these were all dangers that Uber was going to have to address. And what the bears are saying is that these dangers are going to continue to be there and really kind of prevent the company from growing beyond a certain point. That's what I get from that anyway. But I think we're aware that, Uber is working and doing things to prevent sexual misconduct from happening in their vehicles, and they're doing things to prevent racial discrimination from happening, because obviously none of those two things should be happening in any scenario whatsoever. And we're actually going to be talking about something they're going to be doing to help protect both the driver and the passenger of their vehicles later in the video. Other thing that the bears are saying is that ride sharing is a relatively new industry, so that there might be more regulation coming in the future that's going to make it a lot harder for Uber to kind of operate. And finally, the bears thinks that the autonomous vehicle market and companies like Google's Waymo will actually do a lot to put Uber and Lyft out of business, thinking that Uber and Lyft aren't actually going to be able to make the switch over into autonomous vehicles, and that it really could work against them. So I find it interesting how one of the bulls' main points is also one of the bears' main points, and it really just kind of depends. Is Uber going to be able to capitalize in the autonomous vehicle market, or are they not going to be able to capitalize in that market and just kind of become obsolete because you have autonomous vehicles, which would handle some of these problems like racial discrimination, sexual misconduct, and things like that. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see. I think that Uber has to be aware that that is the future in some respect, whether it's 5, 10, 15 years from now. That's going to happen at some point, and being in the position to capitalize on that when it happens is going to be highly essential, because it would make Uber kind of obsolete. It would make other companies be able to start perhaps at a low, higher profitability, because they wouldn't have to be paying their drivers to drive the cars because there's no driver. So I think Uber is aware of the fact that this is coming. And really right now it depends on, do you think that Uber will be able to capitalize on it like the bulls, or do you think that Uber is going to kind of fall flat like the bears are saying? Some other things you need to know about Uber. These are some things that are currently going on. This is coming from marketwatch.com. Uber over the last quarter has lost $3 billion due to the coronavirus pandemic, due to being shut down. That's a significant amount of money. I mean, $3 billion over the last quarter. That's no small amount. They've had to lay off 6,700 employees. That's 25% of their workforce. The CEO of Uber doesn't necessarily expect this to be ending anytime soon. In fact, he says that he does not expect life to go back to the way it was before the pandemic. He admits that drivers and riders alike are probably going to be reluctant to accept ride-sharing services until some sort of COVID breakthrough is released, either a vaccine or other type of cure or preventative measures. But despite that, what is Uber doing to actually try and help some things move along as far as preventative safety measures are concerned when it comes to the coronavirus? Well, they are now requiring both drivers and passengers to wear face masks. The drivers actually have to submit a selfie of themselves to Uber before they accept a ride, showing a face covering. That way Uber can see that they're taking the necessary safety measures and protocols. The app will also prompt passengers to wear masks as well. Now, the passengers don't have to submit a photo of themselves, but a driver can refuse to pick up a passenger if that passenger is not wearing their mask, and it will become at no penalty to the driver. Now, that obviously could lead to some issues further on down the road. I'm sure you can probably be thinking of some of those, but it does provide a safety measure between driver and passenger, and it's going to increase the likelihood of the passenger's willingness and likelihood to wear the mask, because they know that they're not necessarily going to get a ride if they're not wearing them. So I think Uber is doing a little bit to try and get a little bit life back in the business, get people, using their service again, and they're going to do that by showing that, we are trying to care about your safety. Speaking of safety, what else is Uber doing? Well, they have actually released a new text 911 service through their app. This means that if your vehicle is going off course or something that really shouldn't be happening is happening, there's a new emergency service through the app, allows you to contact them very quickly. Basically, the way that's going to work is that, if you notice something's going wrong, it's going to allow you to hit the text 911 button. You can enter what the emergency is, and your location will instantly be sent to the 911 emergency officials. The other thing is Uber can actually do it themselves already, that if your vehicle is going way off course and it's continuing to driving in a direction that's nowhere near your location, Uber can actually send all of that information directly to 911. But this 911 feature in the app is going to allow both drivers and passengers to have a little bit more safety and a little bit more control over their own well-being, because it allows them to know that if something goes wrong, I do have access to emergency personnel with really just the click of a button. A couple more things you need to know about Uber. They've actually released a new feature in their app called Hourly, which is where you can hire an Uber driver to drive you around for a far longer period of time. It's by the hour. Maybe it's multiple stops. Maybe you need the Uber driver to wait somewhere. And this is a new feature in the app called Hourly. It's going to be $50 per hour to really hire these cars. These cars are coming from Uber's comfort class, so a little bit higher than just the standard. And these cars can be hired by the hour for $50 an hour. There are also some varying rates depending on the city's mileage and things of that nature. But this is a new feature that Uber's adding to their app, and I think it's kind of cool to see. I'm interested to see how well it's going to take off. It's a great thing for their employees too. I mean, $50 an hour, you're not making that really anywhere as far as part-time jobs are concerned. So $50 an hour, not too bad at all. Finally, the last thing I want to say about Uber, what are they trying to do? They're actually right now trying to acquire Grubhub. I'm sure you've heard of both Grubhub and Uber Eats. Right now, there's been a lot of talks between the companies about a potential merger, and Uber would acquire Grubhub. I think it'd be very interesting to see. We would see two of the major food delivery services become one. Uber is actually prepared to sell $900 million worth of bonds to allow that acquisition to go through. This is a much higher rate than the $750 million that was originally proposed. But Uber and Grubhub seem to be pretty serious about this merger going through. There's not a whole lot of public information about it yet, just kind of talks and whispers. It's a relatively recent news. But if we see this go through, it could provide a large power to both of those companies becoming one. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And it would definitely make Uber the kind of leading in the space of online food delivery. So Grubhub, Uber becoming one. We'll have to see what it does in the future, but I'm definitely excited to see what happens. Last thing we need to address today is whether or not Uber's a buy. From Investors Business Daily, Scott Latonin, he's been on the show before. We've talked about him before. He does not think Uber's a buy. He says the company leaves a lot to be desired and the stock shares are way off their current highs, and he, for that reason, does not think that Uber is currently a buy. Whether or not I think Uber's a buy, I think you have to look at the long-term potential of Uber, basically saying what is the probability of this company being able to do everything it is it's saying it's going to do long into the future, and I think that's kind of what it is now with Uber. Right now, things are bad, but it's looking at the intrinsic value of that company and whether or not we think that company is going to be able to continue to give returns into the future. Hope you enjoyed this video today, guys. Make sure you drop us a like, favorite, comment, subscribe, all that awesome stuff. I would highly appreciate it. A lot of resources in the description for you, so definitely make sure you take advantage of them. Again, highly appreciate it. Thanks for the 100 subscribers. You guys are so awesome. I appreciate it. That really made my day when it happened. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you found some value. And with that, we'll see you next time.